Ever had a travel experience so bad you swore never to return? Like you bought the t-shirt, saw the sights, and then something so wild, so frustrating, or just so plain weird happened that you thought, yeah, I'm good. One and done. Well, I've had a few of those, and today I'm going to spill all the tea. I've traveled all over the world, seen some incredible things, and met amazing people, but let's be real. Not every trip is a perfect 10 out of 10. Sometimes things go spectacularly wrong, and that's what this video is all about. Now, before we jump into this, I need to make something crystal clear. This is my list. These are my personal stories, my opinions, and my experiences. Just because a country is on this list doesn't mean it's a bad place or that you shouldn't go. You might go to one of these places and have the best time of your life. Travel is super subjective. Well, you'll see. This is just my crazy journey, and I'm sharing the raw, unfiltered truth of what happened to me. All right, let's kick this off with a big one. Egypt. The pyramids of Giza, the Sphinx, the history. It was at the top of my bucket list. I pictured myself standing there, feeling the ancient energy, maybe riding a camel heroically into the sunset. The reality? It was an absolute whirlwind of chaos from the moment I stepped out of the hotel. I felt like I had a giant neon sign above my head that just flashed, "Tourist, scam me!" everywhere I went. The moment that really sealed the deal for me was at the pyramids themselves. I was trying to get that perfect, iconic photo. You know the one. Suddenly, a guy dressed in traditional clothing comes up, super friendly, and starts telling me all this amazing history. He points out the best photo spots, takes my phone to get some incredible angles, and I'm thinking, wow, this is so nice. He then leads me over to his camel, lets me pet it, and insists I get on for a picture. It felt like a genuine, magical moment. Then came the catch. He helps me down, and I'm beaming, thanking him profusely, and he just holds out his hand and says, "That will be $100 US. $100 for a 5-minute photo op that I didn't even technically ask for." I was stunned. So while the pyramids are undeniably one of the most incredible things I've ever seen, the experience surrounding them was just too much for me. I felt like I was constantly in a battle, and that's not what I want from a vacation. So, Egypt, you're amazing to look at, but I don't think I'll be coming back for a second round. Next up on our world tour of thanks, but no thanks, is India. Now, India is a country that assaults your senses in every way possible. The colors, the sounds, the smells. It's vibrant, it's alive, and it's completely overwhelming. I went in with an open mind, ready for the culture shock, ready for the adventure. What I wasn't ready for was what the locals ominously call Delhi belly. But this wasn't just some minor stomachache. Oh no. This was a full-blown, biblical plague-level stomach bug apocalypse. It all started with some delicious-looking street food. I know, rookie mistake. But it smelled so good. A friendly vendor was making these little fried pastries and everyone was lining up. I thought, when in Rome, or, Delhi, I ate one, and it was incredible. I ate another. For a few glorious hours, I was fine. I was exploring markets, taking in the sights of New Delhi, feeling like a seasoned traveler. Then it hit me. It started as a low grumble, a faint whisper of impending doom deep in my gut. Within an hour, I was in the fight for my life. I've never been that sick before. It was like my body was trying to exorcise a demon. I spent the next 3 days of my week-long trip curled up in a ball in my hotel room, which, let's just say, was not a 5-star establishment. I couldn't keep water down. I was weak, dehydrated, and genuinely scared. A trip that was supposed to be about exploring ancient forts and vibrant cities turned into a tour of my hotel bathroom's tile pattern. I probably know the exact number of tiles on that floor. Sorry, India, you broke me. Okay, for country number 3, we're heading to the Caribbean, Jamaica. I was picturing chill reggae vibes, beautiful beaches, jerk chicken, and just relaxing by the water. I booked what I thought was a nice, all-inclusive resort to just unwind for a week. The pictures online looked like paradise. The reality, however, was a masterclass in misleading marketing and things going spectacularly wrong. The problem started before I even got to the resort. I land in Montego Bay, and the transfer I had booked just wasn't there. No sign, no driver, nothing. After an hour of asking around and making expensive international calls, I finally got a hold of someone who told me the driver had an issue, and I should just take a local taxi. Fine. So I grab a cab and show the driver the address of the resort. After about 45 minutes of winding through unfamiliar streets, he pulls over in front of a very modest-looking building that was definitely not the sprawling resort from the pictures. getting him to understand the mistake was a whole new challenge. There was a language barrier. He was getting frustrated, and I was starting to panic a little, stranded in the middle of nowhere. Number 4 on my list is a massive, fascinating, and incredibly complex country, China. I was there for a work trip that extended into a bit of personal travel, and I was excited to see places like the Great Wall and the Forbidden City. I knew going in that there would be some cultural differences and logistical hurdles, but I severely underestimated one major thing: the Great Firewall. Living without Google, YouTube, Instagram, and pretty much every app I use daily was way, way harder than I thought. I had downloaded a VPN before I left, thinking I was all set. I'd be able to bypass the restrictions, no problem. Well, my VPN worked for about the first 6 hours I was in Shanghai, and then nothing. It just stopped connecting. Suddenly, I was cut off. No Google Maps to navigate the sprawling city, no Google Translate to ask for directions or read a menu, no WhatsApp to contact my family back home. I felt digitally stranded. The language barrier was also more significant than in other countries I've visited. In most places, you can find enough English signage or people who speak a few words to get by. In many parts of China, especially away from the main tourist hubs, that just wasn't the case. Trying to navigate daily life was a huge challenge. Ordering food became a game of pointing at pictures and hoping for the best, which led to some very interesting and unexpected meals. Let's just say I ate a lot of things I couldn't identify. While the sights themselves were incredible, the Great Wall is truly breathtaking. The constant logistical struggle made it hard to enjoy them fully. For someone who likes to be independent and explore on their own, the digital isolation in China was just too much of a barrier for me to have a truly enjoyable, relaxing trip. Let's talk about expectations versus reality. For our 5th country, we're going to the Bahamas. When you think of the Bahamas, you probably picture what I did: secluded white sand beaches, crystal clear turquoise water, and maybe a few pigs swimming peacefully by. I booked a trip to Nassau, expecting to find that tranquil paradise. My expectation was a peaceful beach escape. The reality was something entirely different. The reality was cruise ship chaos. I had no idea that Nassau is one of the busiest cruise ports in the world. I arrived on a Tuesday, and it was like the entire city had been invaded. Thousands upon thousands of people poured off these colossal ships, flooding the streets, shops, and beaches. The main town area near the port was an absolute madhouse. It was a sea of fanny packs, sunburns, and people looking for the nearest Senor Frogs. It was the complete opposite of the relaxing vibe I was searching for. I went to Cable Beach, one of the most famous stretches of sand, and it was packed shoulder to shoulder. Jet skis were buzzing by constantly, music was blasting from a dozen different speakers, and vendors were walking up and down the beach every 30 seconds trying to sell you a hat, a shell necklace, or a special drink in a pineapple. The famous swimming pigs were another dose of reality. I had seen these cute pictures on Instagram of people serenely swimming with a few pigs in pristine water. So I booked an expensive day trip to see them. The reality was a small, crowded beach with dozens of other tour boats, all full of people trying to get the same photo. The pigs themselves seemed stressed and were aggressively chasing people for the food the guides were handing out. It felt less like a magical animal encounter and more like a chaotic, slightly sad tourist trap. Ultimately, my dream of a quiet Bahamian getaway was shattered by the sheer volume of mass tourism. It felt like the entire place was designed to extract as much money as possible from cruise passengers in the few hours they have on shore. For number 6, we're off to North Africa, to the magical maze-like streets of Marrakesh, Morocco. I was so excited for this one. The spice markets, the riads, the vibrant colors. It seemed like a photographer's dream. And it was. But it was also home to one of the most bizarre and funny mishaps of my travel career. This is the story of how I, a grown adult, got completely and utterly outsmarted and scammed by a group of kids who couldn't have been older than 10. I was trying to navigate the Medina, the ancient walled part of the city. It's a literal labyrinth of narrow, winding alleys, and getting lost is part of the experience, or so they say. After about an hour of walking in circles, I was genuinely lost. My phone's GPS was useless. Suddenly, a small boy, maybe 9 years old, pops out of a doorway. He smiles a huge, friendly smile and asks in perfect English, "You're lost, mister." I was so relieved. Yes, I am," I said, showing him the name of my riad. "Oh, easy, I know it, follow me," he said, and trotted off. I followed, so grateful for this little angel who had appeared to save me. As we walked, another kid joined us, then another. Soon I was being led through the maze by a little gang of 4 or 5 kids, all chatting and laughing. It was actually kind of cute. They led me through alleys I never would have found on my own. And sure enough, after about 10 minutes, we arrived right at the door of my riad. I was so impressed. I reached into my pocket to pull out a few coins to thank the main kid. "Thank you so much. This is for you," I said, holding out the money. He looked at the coins in my hand, then up at me, and his entire demeanor changed. The friendly smile vanished. "No," he said sternly. "My friends, we are 5. It is 20 euros. Each." I just stared at him. 20 euros each? 100 euros for a 10-minute walk? I started laughing, thinking he was joking. He was not joking. His little friends all surrounded me, their arms crossed, looking very serious. It was the most surreal shakedown of my life. Here I was, a full-grown man, being intimidated by a group of tiny children. They were relentless. I argued, I tried to negotiate, but they were pros. In the end, flustered and frankly a bit impressed by their hustle, I gave them way more money than I should have. They snatched it and ran off laughing down the alley. I just stood there, speechless. Morocco, you're beautiful, but your kids are criminal masterminds. Coming in at number 7 is a country known for its passion, its parties, and its stunning natural beauty, Brazil. I was in Rio de Janeiro, and honestly, I was ready for it all. Christ the Redeemer, Sugarloaf Mountain, and of course the legendary Copacabana Beach. I was staying just a few blocks away and spent my first afternoon just soaking it all in. The beach was incredible, bustling with energy, people playing volleyball, vendors selling drinks. It felt like the center of the universe. But that energy also has a darker side. I had been warned repeatedly about safety in Rio, especially on the beaches. Don't wear flashy jewelry, don't carry a lot of cash, don't leave your stuff unattended. I thought I was being careful. I had my phone, a little bit of cash, and my room key in a small bag that I kept with me at all times. As evening started to set in, the beach started to thin out a bit, and the vibe changed. It felt a bit more tense. I was walking along the water's edge, just enjoying the sunset. That's when I noticed 2 guys walking a little too closely behind me. I tried to brush it off as me being paranoid, but my gut was telling me something was wrong. I picked up my pace a little, and they picked up theirs. My heart started pounding. I decided to head away from the water and back towards the main promenade where there were more lights and people. As I turned, one of them cut in front of me, while the other stayed behind. They had me boxed in. The guy in front of me didn't say a word. He just lifted his shirt slightly, and I saw the handle of something tucked into his waistband. I don't know for sure if it was a weapon, and honestly, I didn't want to find out. My blood ran cold. Time just seemed to slow down. I knew exactly what was happening. I immediately threw my small bag on the sand a few feet away from them, put my hands up, and started backing away, saying, Okay, take it, take it." They looked at the bag, then at me, and in that split second of hesitation, a police patrol on quad bikes came roaring down the beach. The 2 guys saw them, looked at each other, and just took off running into the neighborhood behind the beach. They vanished as quickly as they appeared. The police stopped and asked if I was okay, but the guys were long gone. I was left there, shaking, my heart hammering against my ribs. I was physically unharmed, but the feeling of terror and vulnerability was overwhelming. That single moment completely overshadowed my entire trip, and it's a feeling I never want to experience again. Number 8 is a place that is consistently ranked as one of the most beautiful spots on Earth, Ha Long Bay in Vietnam. I had seen the pictures 1,000 times, thousands of limestone karsts and isles jutting out of emerald green water. It looks like something from another planet. I booked a 2-night, 3-day cruise, expecting a serene journey through this natural wonder. My trip was serene, all right, so serene that we barely moved. The disappointment started with the boat itself. The photos online showed a charming, traditional-style junk boat with polished wood and beautiful sails. The boat I was put on was, let's call it a rustic cousin of the one in the pictures. It was a bit run down, a little grimy, and the sails were purely decorative. But I thought, okay, I'm not here for the boat. I'm here for the bay. The real issue was the itinerary. Or rather, the lack of one. We sailed out from the harbor for about an hour, dropped anchor in a bay surrounded by a few of the famous karsts, and then we just sat there. For hours. The first day's activity was swimming and kayaking around the boat. That was it. We were in a bay with about 50 other boats, all doing the exact same thing. It felt less like exploring a vast mythical landscape and more like being in a very crowded, slightly dirty swimming pool. I kept waiting for the sailing through the bay part of the cruise to begin. I thought maybe the next day we would venture deeper into the less traveled areas. Nope. The next morning, we motored for about 30 minutes to a cave, which was packed with hundreds of other tourists. After the cave tour, we motored another 20 minutes to a different spot, dropped anchor again, and that was it for the rest of the day. We spent probably 90% of the cruise just being parked. The whole thing felt like a massive bait and switch. I had paid for a journey, an exploration of this massive, incredible UNESCO World Heritage Site. What I got was a floating hotel that barely moved from the most crowded, tourist-choked part of the bay. The views were still beautiful, don't get me wrong, but the experience was profoundly disappointing. Halong Bay might be stunning, but my particular trip was a huge letdown. Ah, Italy. The food, the art, the history, the romance. What's not to love? Well, I found something. It's not one big dramatic story, but a death by 1,000 cuts. Or in this case, a death by 1,000 hidden fees. My never-again moment in Italy, specifically in Rome, was the constant feeling of being nickel and dimed by an endless stream of negative surprises and tourist taxes that were never mentioned up front. It started with the hotel. I had booked and prepaid for my room online. When I checked in, tired after a long flight, the receptionist smiled and said, "That will be 48 euros for the city tax, please." I was confused. I thought I had paid for everything. "Oh no," she explained. "The city tourist tax is separate and must be paid in cash upon arrival." This wasn't mentioned anywhere on the booking website. It was a frustrating surprise, but I paid it and moved on. Then it happened at restaurants. You sit down, have a lovely meal, and when the bill comes, there are extra charges on it. There's the coperto, which is a cover charge per person just for sitting at the table. Then there's often a servizio, a service charge, which isn't the same as a tip. And on top of that, the bread they put on your table that you thought was complimentary? Nope, you're paying for that too. A 50 € meal could easily become a 70 € meal with all these surprise add-ons. But the most blatant one was at a cafe near the Pantheon. I saw a sign that said espresso €1. Great, I thought, a cheap coffee. I went to the counter, ordered my espresso, and drank it right there, standing up like the locals do. It was €1. The next day, I went back to the same cafe with a friend. We were tired, so we sat down at one of the empty outdoor tables. We ordered the exact same espressos. The bill came. It was 10 euros, 5 euros per coffee. When I questioned it, the waiter just shrugged and pointed at the table. You sit, you pay. This happened over and over again. Different prices for everything depending on whether you were sitting or standing. A tax for this, a fee for that. It felt like a system designed to squeeze every last cent out of unsuspecting tourists. While I loved the Colosseum and the pasta was divine, the constant feeling of being tricked and overcharged for basic things was exhausting. It made it hard to trust anyone and just took the joy out of the experience. And now, for the 10th and final country on my never-again list. This one isn't because of scams or crowds or bad food. This one is because of a genuinely terrifying, life-altering experience. The country is the Philippines, and the story involves being stranded on a tiny island during a super typhoon. I had gone to El Nido in Palawan, which is famous for its unbelievable lagoons and island-hopping tours. It was paradise for the first few days. I was staying in a small guest house on a relatively remote beach. The weather was perfect. Blue skies, calm seas. I was completely disconnected. No Wi-Fi, no cell service. It was pure bliss. On my third day, I noticed the sky started to look a little strange. The wind picked up. The local fishermen started pulling all their boats way up onto the shore. I didn't think much of it. I just thought a storm was rolling in. I had no idea. That night, all hell broke loose. The wind sounded like a freight train. Rain was coming in sideways, and the waves were crashing so hard it felt like the whole island was shaking. This wasn't a storm. It was a force of nature. Power went out immediately. I was in my little bamboo hut, listening to the world being torn apart outside, completely alone and in total darkness. I was genuinely terrified that the hut would be ripped from its foundation. I spent the entire night huddled in the bathroom, the most solid part of the structure, just praying for morning. When the sun came up, the devastation was unbelievable. Trees were snapped in half, buildings were damaged, and the beautiful beach was gone, replaced by debris. And the worst part? We were completely cut off. The storm had been a major typhoon, and all boats and flights were canceled indefinitely. There was no way off the island. We had no communication with the outside world. We didn't know when help would come or how long we'd be stuck. For 4 days we were stranded. Food and fresh water started to get low. Everyone was on edge. The paradise I had come to see had turned into a survival situation. It was a stark reminder of how powerful and unpredictable nature can be, and how vulnerable we are. When we were finally able to get a boat back to the main town, it was a huge relief. While the Philippines is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, that experience of feeling so helpless and terrified in the face of nature's fury is something I never want to repeat. It was a traumatic end to what started as a dream trip. And that's the list. 10 countries, 10 crazy stories, and 10 places that I probably won't be rushing back to. From stomach bugs and scams to typhoons and tourist traps, it's been a wild ride. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me and letting me share these experiences with you. It's important to remember the good and the bad, and sometimes the bad makes for a much better story. I hope you guys found this entertaining, and maybe even useful for your travel plans. Again, I have to say, this is all just my personal experience. You could go to every single one of these countries and have the absolute best time of your life, and I genuinely hope you do. Don't let my stories put you off exploring the world. Every journey is unique, and that's what makes travel so amazing. My nightmare trip could be your dream vacation. The world is a massive, incredible place, and these 10 experiences are just a tiny fraction of my journey. Now, I really want to hear from you. I'm going to be down in the comments for the next few hours, so tell me everything. What's your number one never again country and why? What's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you on a trip? Let's share some stories. And if you like this video and want to see more travel adventures, hopefully some more successful ones, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.